know Al and used Hippo Valley for our VBS mission this past year, and we raised more money for Hippo Valley than we did for any other mission that we've had for VBS. So we were excited about that. The kids really got involved in it. We're going to show a short video, and then Brother Al's going to take over and let you know about the African mission, okay?
No sound. All right. Well, we can read the captions.
I'm sure you speak Swahili.
Good, buddy. Thank you. What's your name again? Steve. I know. Well, maybe we can get the sound fixed before the worship service, if possible. If not, that's all right. But good morning. My name is Al Sirhall, and I'm the executive director of Hippo Valley Christian Mission. And Hippo Valley Christian Mission is a mission that has been supported by Coal Run for 2 or 3 years now, I think. I know Brother Steve, I think, is one that kind of introduced the mission to the church. But Hippo Valley Christian Mission is one of the great missions in the history of the Restoration Movement. There are a handful of great missions that go back, 100 years in the Restoration Movement, and Hippo Valley Christian Mission is one of those. And we don't go back 100 years, we go back 70 years. Hippo Valley Christian Mission began in 1956. It was founded by John Pemberton and also Denny Pruitt. And it's not just one of the great missions, it's one of the great mission stories, really, in the history of the Restoration Movement. John Pemberton was a prisoner of war in World War II. He was a boy from Gary, Indiana, found himself in the Second World War, and at the Battle of the Bulge, which I believe this was the 80th anniversary last month of the historic Battle of the Bulge. But anyway, John was captured at the Battle of the Bulge and went to a prison camp. And there in that prison camp, he thought he was going to die. He was hungry, he was physically wasting away, he was cold, and one morning he reached, you might say, a breaking point. And he did what I think a lot of young men did in that situation. He, cried out to the God of his cradle faith. He cried out to the God that he grew up learning about in church and Sunday school. And he said, Lord, if you get me home, I will serve you the rest of my life. And a few months later, the war was over. And I think a lot of young men made promises like that. I don't know if they all kept them, but John kept it. He kept his promise. And he was from Gary, Indiana, and he came home and he married his high school sweetheart, Marge. And the two of them, under the newly formed GI Bill, went to Bible college, and they went to Kentucky Christian College. So as newlyweds. And while he was a student at Kentucky Christian College, training for the ministry. At the time, he didn't know what he was going to do, where he was going to go. He just knew he made that promise to God. He met another World War II veteran from North Carolina named Denny Pruitt. And Denny had made the same promise. Now, Denny was not a POW. He was a tail gunner up in these planes over the South Pacific. And he's up there getting shot at and said, Lord, if you get me home, I will serve you the rest of my life. And Denny married Lucy, and they moved from North Carolina to Kentucky Christian College. And so John and Denny met. And because they had so much in common, such a similar background, a similar story, they became friends, lifetime friends. And through a series of divine events, we look back and we can see the hand of God in these things. The Lord called them to be missionaries in Africa. John and Denny, one of them got the idea to travel from Grayson to Toronto, Canada, to the 1950 World Mission Fair. And they went by bus. Can you imagine how long it would take to get from eastern Kentucky to Toronto, Canada by bus back in those days before interstates and all that? But they went to Toronto, and while they were at the World Mission Fair in Toronto, Canada, they met a man named Garfield Todd. Garfield Todd was Prime Minister of Rhodesia in sub-Saharan Africa. You say, why would the Prime Minister of Rhodesia be at the World Mission Fair? Well, Garfield Todd, before he was Prime Minister of Rhodesia, was a Church of Christ missionary from New Zealand who had gone with several New Zealand missionaries to evangelize Africa. And because he'd gotten involved in the political world, he was recruiting someone to come and take up this mission work. And so John Pemberton and Denny Pruitt and Garfield Todd met at the World Mission Fair in Toronto, Canada. And the rest is history. He called them to come, and they came. So in 1956, the Pembertons, with their young family, moved from Grayson, Kentucky, to Rhodesia, to a remote place in Rhodesia called Mashoko. Now, Mashoko was very rural, tens of thousands of people there, but there was no school, there was no medical, there was no church. And they started the mission there at Mashoko. The Pruitt family came 2 years later. Denny, after he graduated from KCC, went to medical school, became a brilliant medical missionary. And the Pruitt family came in 58. And they established this mission at Mashoko with the simple philosophy of reaching the whole person for Christ. Or as John Pemberton used to say, reaching the whole man for Christ. And that meant the body, the mind, and the soul. You can kind of see that in this chart. You should have a little insert in your bulletin. Does anyone not have this insert? If you don't, Rachel's got a stack of these things. Raise your hand, Rachel will give you one. This is Rachel Johnson, by the way. She's the Living Proof Director at Hippo Valley Christian Mission. So anybody need one? No? Okay. So the mission began in 58, reaching the whole person for Christ, body, mind, and soul. The body through health care. Dr. Pruitt built a little health clinic there at Mashoko for the medical needs of the people, malaria and infant mortality issues and all those things. The Pembertons built a school to teach the children reading and writing and about Jesus. And there in that schoolhouse, they started the church for the soul, preaching the gospel for the soul. Now that simple philosophy has driven this mission now for 69 years. Body, mind, and soul. Today, Hippo Valley Christian Mission has 29 mission schools. We have something like 22,000 kids currently enrolled in our mission schools. Now, these are kids who are not only learning about reading and writing and arithmetic, but they're learning about Jesus. Every year we baptize hundreds of people into Christ through the evangelistic efforts of our mission schools. Something like 600,000 or 700,000 kids over the past 69 years have passed through these mission schools. That's why I say it's one of the great missions, one of the great mission stories in the history of the Restoration Movement. Zimbabwe is one of the most evangelized countries in all of Africa. And the Church of Christ is very, very strong in Zimbabwe, and that's due in part to some of these great pioneer missionaries in the 50s and the 60s. Today we have 29 mission schools. That little health clinic that Dr. Pruitt built is a hospital, the Mashoko Hospital. We have 2 additional health clinics. We have an orphan ministry that we started 25 years ago to address the HIV epidemic that had just ravaged sub-Saharan Africa. So many kids on the streets, just completely orphaned. And we've raised a couple hundred kids in that orphanage since the year 2000. So we reach the whole person for Christ, the body through healthcare, the mind through mission schools, and the soul through the preaching of the gospel, the establishing of churches, planting churches, training preachers at our Bible college, Central Africa Christian College. So if you look at this little chart, it kind of lays out how the mission functions and has functioned for 70 years. We've got 29 mission schools with over 20,000 kids in them. About 10 or 11 years ago, we started a program called Living Proof. And this Living Proof program has really become kind of the backbone of our mission. And this is where we go into our mission schools, starting with 2nd, 3rd graders. And we identify kids in our mission schools who are bright kids with a great attitude, but they come from extremely poor families. Now, Zimbabwe is one of the 2 or 3 poorest countries on earth. So we're talking, when we talk about poor, we're talking about the poorest of the poor. And we take these kids and we put them in these living proof clubs. And that's what that video was about, the Living Proof program. You really couldn't grasp it without the sound. But we started this program 10 or 11 years ago, and we are seeing this tremendous fruit coming from this Living Proof program. So every one of our mission schools has chaplains and patrons. Patrons are school teachers from our churches that are kind of the club leaders. And these kids get a Living Proof t-shirt, like you saw them wearing. They get a Bible. They get a great Bible teaching, Bible curriculum that we teach. They get protein drinks. They get Bible lessons, and they memorize scripture and learn songs. And every year at Christmas, they have their annual Christmas party, which they just live for this thing. We just had them, last month. And at the Christmas party, they get, chicken and rice and cake and Cokes, and they just live for this Christmas party. And there at the Christmas party, they get their Christmas present, which is a brand new school uniform. And these uniforms, it's hard to really understand what it means to some poor rural kid from the bush who's never had new clothes in their life to be able to go to school with a new school uniform, shoes, socks, the whole thing, brand new. And it just affects their attitude about learning so much. And so we invest in these kids starting very young. And then in, I guess 3 years ago now, we opened the brand new Living Proof High School. Now we have 3 or 4 other high schools, but what's special about Living Proof High School is it is a premier private boarding school. Now, boarding schools are for the elite, really. By elite, by African standards, the kids whose parents, make enough money to actually send them to a boarding school. Most of our kids, none of our kids in the Living Proof program have the kind of money where they can go to a boarding school. Boarding school is the ideal. See, it's not like here where every community has a high school. There's lots of primary schools in Africa, government primary schools, mission primary, but the high schools are in the towns. So people who live out in the bush, if their kid wants to go to high school, they have to live with a relative or find somebody in a town that can take their child in so they can go to high school. That's why the dropout rate is something like 60 or 70% of kids who don't. High school is expensive. So this Living Proof program, we put our kids in high school. Now they don't all get to go to Living Proof high school. We can't afford to do that at this time. But we opened this as a premier private boarding school for the kids who really excel academically and in character. And they get the opportunity of a lifetime to go to this high school where they study with what they call Cambridge curriculum, and it's just a wonderful opportunity for them academically. But all the kids in the Living Proof program get to go to high school. We currently have over 600 kids in high school from this Living Proof program who would not be in high school if it weren't for this program. That's the maturity of this program. So we've got over 20,000 kids in our mission schools. We've got over 2,000 kids, probably closer to 2,500 now, wouldn't you say, Rachel, in our Living Proof program. We've got about 200 kids at Living Proof High School. We're getting ready to bring in another freshman class in January. Their school season starts in January. And then from there, we're pointing them towards Central Africa Christian College. That's our Bible college. John Pemberton started Central Africa Christian College in 1958 to train preachers. The name has changed. It's moved around a little bit. It moved to the capital city. In the 70s, it was called Rhodesia Christian College, then Zimbabwe Christian College. 3 years ago, we changed the name to Central Africa Christian College to better encapsulate the mission of the Bible College. This past year, after jumping through lots and lots and lots of hoops, we've now moved from it being a diploma institution to now it's an actual degree Bible college. So students can get a 4-year degree in Bible and theology. And our vision, our dream is that by next year, hopefully even by August, we'll be able to offer a second degree in Bible and teacher education. That's what we want to do. We want to train preachers and we want to train school teachers, all doctrinally grounded in the Bible. So Central Africa Christian College is growing, it's expanding. And this year, this last August, we actually had 5 students who came through our Living Proof program who are now enrolled as first-year students at Central Africa Christian College, along with, I think we've got something like 70 students at the college right now. So exciting things are happening. We are raising up a future army of leaders, and our vision for Central Africa Christian College is that it'll be more than a college just in Zimbabwe. It is the only Bible college in all of Africa affiliated with the Restoration Movement that can offer a 4-year degree in Bible and theology. It's the only one. And so our vision is to, we say, training the hundreds who will reach the thousands. We have students, we have a student now from Malawi. We have 2 students from Mozambique. We have a student from Kenya. And our vision is to have students from all of sub-Saharan Africa. We want to be the sending place. We want to be the training center for a great evangelistic movement. They say that by the year, when I say they, I mean Barna Research Group, Wall Street Journal. They're saying that by the year 2060, that nearly 40% of the earth's Christians will be living in sub-Saharan Africa. Now that's significant. That's a significant demographic trend. But what's exciting is to know that we're there. We're there. We've got the infrastructure, we've got the system, we've got the college. We want to be training the hundreds who are going to reach the thousands in this next great movement of God in sub-Saharan Africa. That video was about the Living Proof program. Rachel Johnson, she lives in Huntington, West Virginia, but she runs our Living Proof program. Last year, Rachel, we added how many? How many new sponsors? 600 and, it was a little like 614 or something, wasn't it? So we want to add 600 more Living Proof children in 2025. And so today, and only today, if you sign up to be a Living Proof sponsor, you'll receive one of these t-shirts. Rachel has a whole box full of these things. They used to be all brown, these shirts. I thought they looked pretty good, but Rachel came along and she said, you know, you got to get some fun colors. Brown is not a fun color. So now we have fun colors, right, Rachel? So if you want to sign up to be a Living Proof sponsor, it's $30 a month to sponsor one of the kids. $30 a month, that's $1 a day. And with that $30, we take 20 of it to run the Living Proof program. And we have 4 full-time employees over there. We have, we buy the curriculum, the protein drinks. We have a big Living Proof vehicle that our team uses to go out in the bush to these mission schools to run the program, the chaplains, the patrons, all of those things. We do that for, so $20 runs the Living Proof program. 10 of that $30 goes into the Living Proof Scholarship Fund so that when the child you sponsor reaches high school age, we've got the money to put them into high school. And like I said, we currently have 600 kids in high school now that wouldn't be there if it weren't for this program. We have camps. We have a tutoring camp for 7th graders, 10 days of camp, sun up to sundown. They're preparing them for testing so they can get into high school. We have a college days event, which is like a big week of church camp where we bring all the kids together and there's preaching and music, and I think we baptized 31 kids last year at that, just at that week of college days event. It's a fantastic program. You get to profile the child. You can write letters via email, and they print them off over there, and when our team goes out to the rural schools, they take the letters to the kids. They'll write you letters back. You'll get like 3 letters a year. You have the opportunity to buy them a Christmas gift every year of a new uniform. It's a fantastic program. And someone asked me, they said, what's the difference between the Living Proof, I'm going to put this there as a visual, okay? A subliminal message, all right? What's the difference between the Living Proof program and like Compassion or World Vision or some of those others? And besides the obvious, which is, they're huge, I think Compassion's like $46 a month or something, and we're $30. Besides that, what I would say is that those programs, particularly Compassion, is a pretty solid program. They're probably 70% humanitarian, 30% gospel, evangelistic. I think World Vision would be more like 90% humanitarian, 10% Christian, where we're sort of the opposite. Our focus is evangelism. Our focus is the gospel. Our focus is giving them hope and a future, investing in them. We know our kids. It's not like a giant program where there's millions of kids. We know them by name. I don't, but our team does. We know them. We invest in them. We encourage them. We inspire them. We motivate them to not only go on to high school, but even go on and to find God's purpose for their life. So it's a unique program, and I just want to challenge you today, particularly as we approach a new year, to think about becoming a Living Proof sponsor. And if you sign up today, and only today, you'll get one of these t-shirts. So there's a QR code on this insert, and you can use your phone if you're tech savvy. Actually, they say you don't have to be tech savvy. Just hold your phone up to it and do what the phone says. But if you want to do it the old-fashioned way, Rachel's going to be back by the table. But if you can sign up during church with your phone, go back and see her, and she'll give you a t-shirt, or go back there and she can assist you. But we'd love to see 10 or 12 of you become Living Proof sponsors. This will be a great start to our new year and our new goal of bringing in another 600 Living Proof sponsors. We want to invest in these young people and raise up a future army of leaders in Zimbabwe. So that kind of tells you, I guess, gives you an idea of how the mission is laid out, how it began, what we're doing through our mission schools, through our evangelistic efforts. Within, we do revivals in our mission schools. I don't know what the numbers are this year, but I think last year we had 944 baptisms through revivals in schools and all the different things we did. So that's why we're here. That's why our mission exists, is to bring people to Christ and help them find their place, their role, their purpose in God's plan for their life. So the mission is still, after 69 years, we are more focused today than I would say we've ever been. And I want to say thank you to the church for being a part of that, and to those of you who want to become a Living Proof sponsor and get really involved. Again, it's $30 a month. It was 20 for like 10 years. We kept it at 20. And then this thing called inflation happened, and 30 is now the new 20, right? 30 is the new 20. So it's $30 a month, but we do so much with that. So if you want to sign up, do that today. See Rachel back at our booth. We've got other things back there, other brochures and little bracelets and stuff. You can stop and pick those up. But I don't know how much time we have left. Maybe 5 minutes, 6 minutes, but I'd like to be able to hopefully answer questions if anybody has any. About the mission, Living Proof program, college, schools. It's got to be. Did I cover it?
I think you did.
Well, somebody come up with a question, because I don't want to just stand there for 5 minutes. So where is the college? In Harare. Harare in Zimbabwe, the country of Zimbabwe. If we have a map, well, if you look at the map here of Africa, we're down there. That's where the country is of Zimbabwe. If you were to draw a line, Africa's kind of shaped. It's a big continent. It's like 3 or 4 United States can fit in the continent of Africa. 1.4 billion people live on the continent of Africa. But it's kind of shaped like a big piece of pizza. So if you started right there, where it kind of jets out and drew a line straight across, everything south of that, that's where the Sahara Desert, everything south of that is called sub-Saharan Africa or Central Africa. And that part of Africa is mostly, I don't want to say Christian, but you have the indigenous religions, the African traditional religions, which are very pagan, very ancient. It involves the spirits and a prophet or a Naga that consults the spirits. That's still the main African traditional religion on the whole continent. But Christianity is very strong in sub-Saharan Africa because of efforts of missionaries. Like I said, Zimbabwe, almost 70% of the people in Zimbabwe would claim to be Christians. It's one of the most evangelized countries in all of Africa, which is why one of our slogans is we want to change from being a mission field to being a mission movement. We feel like Zimbabwe is the country, the sending country, that should be evangelizing the other countries. And that's the purpose of the college. But we're located in the country of Zimbabwe, down there, and the college is in the capital city, which is called Harare. Harare is a city designed for about 500,000 people, but there's about 7 million people that live in Harare. It's crazy. It's a crazy, congested city, but that's where the college is. 17 acres, near the airport. It's a beautiful location.
Now, are there a lot of other religions there, or Catholic?
Yeah, there are, but in Zimbabwe in particular, the Church of Christ is as strong as anything, and that's due to these mission schools. But anything northern Africa is mostly Islam, but sub-Saharan Africa is not. There's not much in the way of Islam. Islam is very aggressive, though, and they're working their way down, and which is why this is even more important. That we train future leaders, kind of like a firewall, to keep Islam from progressing south. It really is. The future will be interesting in Africa. It really will. Any other questions? The main language, there's one of the great problems in evangelizing Africa is all the languages. There's thousands of languages on that continent. Really, there literally are. Zimbabwe has 7 official languages. Shona is the primary indigenous language, but English is the official language of Zimbabwe. So in most of these countries, it's based on the history of colonization. So Zimbabwe was a British colony, over 100 years ago. So English is what's taught in the schools. English is the official business language. The problem is, as you get out into the rural places, the English is hard to come by. And that's one of our challenges. It's one of the challenges that Rachel's taking on this year in 2025 is improving the English skills of our kids in these rural schools. So the Living Proof program, we're going to really make an effort to improve their English. English is the key. A lot of people don't understand that. They say, well, you're forcing your values and your culture on them. If they want to do anything, educationally, if they want to go on to the university, you have to be proficient in English because it's all in English. You just can't have a country where there's 1,000 different languages. If you want to get education, if you want to get a job, you have to be proficient in English. And so English is the official language, but the further out in the bush you go, the less English there is. Teachers are supposed to teach in English, but they don't always do it because it's frustrating for them because they get these kids who've never spoke English and they're trying to communicate with them, so teachers just sort of cheat and speak to them in Shona instead of in English. And so we're really, that's an area where we're really trying to improve. Investing in these kids is a program where they're going to be rewarded for certain levels of English and that sort of thing. That's a good question. Thank you. One more question?
Approximately how many churches do you think Hippo Valley's been responsible for?
Oh, wow. Hundreds, really. Hundreds. And obviously, our goal is that the churches be independent. But we have 17 preachers who are kind of partially funded by our mission. They're evangelists, and some of them preach in 2 or 3 churches. Our goal is to slowly wean them off mission support to where the churches are providing salaries and stuff for their teachers. But that's a challenge. That's a real challenge. But there are hundreds of churches that Hippo Valley is, I would say, responsible for starting. I mean, every year we just planted a church up in Victoria Falls. just a year and a half ago. We have a new church that we started at Living Proof High School, which we just opened 2 years ago, that meets at the school in a classroom, and they run over 100 people now. In that video, you saw the baptism that was out at Living Proof High School. So the gospel is exploding in sub-Saharan Africa. It really is. It's exciting to be a part of that. All right, thank you so much for your attention. I'm looking forward to preaching during the worship hour. And if you want to be a Living Proof sponsor, see Rachel, and she will get you set up, and you can even get one of these nifty, fun t-shirts.